So we are recording. Don't say anything that you wouldn't want to be recorded. So now that some more folks are here, thanks again for joining us. This is the unofficial meeting of the 44th Assembly District Committee. And we're going to talk about, we have a lot to talk about tonight. Talk about county committee and what is happening with the county committee meeting. It might take place next week. What's happening with our appointments to county committee. And I was just mentioning that something we didn't know was happening is the executive committee of the Democratic Party is actually meeting right now, and they're live streaming it on YouTube. So Francis, our secretary, is keeping an eye on that video, and he's going to post in the chat if there's any news that emerges from that other meeting that's going on at the same time. So don't feel like you're missing anything. If you want to catch up on what the executive committee is doing tonight, that's going to be on the Brooklyn Democratic Party's YouTube page tomorrow. So thanks again for joining us, everybody. Welcome. And I see that Assembly Member Carroll has joined us. So thanks, Bobby, for joining us tonight. I wanted to get him on first just to talk a little bit about what his priorities are for right now and for the coming year. And then we'll probably have time for just a few questions for the Assembly member before we get into talking about county committee stuff. So I'll turn it over to Bobby right now.
Great. Good evening. Thank you so much, Tony. And thank you everyone who helped set this up. I hope everyone had a healthy and safe Thanksgiving, and I'm sure it was very different, like everything this year was very different. But hopefully over the next 4 to 6 months, we will be on the other side of COVID and vaccines will be rolled out and things will start to get more normal in the spring or early summer, but obviously it'll be a long winter. And because of that, there's a lot of things that the state of New York must do. And the state, the city, the MTA are facing record deficits. It's imperative for the state to raise tremendous amounts of revenue so that the essential services that folks rely on can continue. The first course of action will be to save the MTA because their budget comes due first. They are voting on December 18th whether to enact a doomsday budget that could cause the laying off of 10,000 employees and a reduction of service by an additional 40%. The state is also seeing a deficit in the $7 to $9 billion range, depending on who you ask, when the city is facing a $4 to $5 billion range. These numbers are somewhat fluid and change from time to time. Hopefully, the new president and Congress will actually pass the HEROES Act, and we will get some dollars for our state and local government, hopefully, but that won't be enough. So we in the Assembly are talking about raising revenue from ultra high earners, people making over $5 million a year. We're also talking about taxing pied-à-terres and luxury second homes. We're looking at taxing financial instruments. I have two proposals. To be honest, one is popular, one is unpopular. They're both taxes. One is a corporate minimum, a minimum corporate income tax to make sure that all corporations in New York over a certain threshold, a certain size, at least pay a minimum corporate income tax. And another is an idea that I've had for a long time, which has recently gotten some press, which is looking at non-essential online deliveries and placing a fee on those. So kind of just the ubiquitous Amazon, eBay deliveries that come throughout the city that clog our roads, hurt our small businesses, and cause tremendous amounts of waste. But that's going to be the main thrust of the legislative session, is trying to save the city, the state, and the MTA budget from complete ruin and collapse. We will invariably end up getting some money from the federal government, borrowing some money, and raising taxes and possibly making some cuts. But probably all four in some way, shape, or form will be implemented. There's a lot of other things obviously still on the agenda, but that is the first task ahead. And I do think it's imperative that at the same time we look at novel and creative ideas to save our small businesses. I introduced two bills around making insurance companies to pay out business interruption claims. The casualty and liability insurance industry is sitting on $1.7 trillion of reserves and assets. We need them to help save our small businesses. It's what makes New York unique and a great place to live. And we need to figure out how to make sure we have as meaningful a school year as possible. I'm really happy that blended learners are going back to school on December 7th. We've got to stay vigilant. It's not enough right now. We've got lots of kids in Nest autism classes that are still closed, other District 75 and schools for folks, for children of special needs are still closed. There's a lot of students out there who have a lot of needs that we've got to make sure are getting their services. We can't have them miss more and more school time, all the while knowing that safety and COVID is still a huge, huge risk.
Thank you very much for that summary, Assembly Member, and for the work that you're doing. We could take a few quick questions for the Assembly Member before we get into other business. Does anyone have a question? If you want to post it in the chat or raise your hand, or you can just jump in. I see Shahid Khan. You can go ahead and ask your question. You'll just need to unmute yourself, Shahid.
Thanks for meeting, and really a good thing that at least we are meeting every month, although we have nothing in our hand. There is no information, there is no notification, there is no any letter even from your end or Brooklyn Democrat Party that we have been elected as a Democrat Party. This looks like a very non-serious business. So at least we need a notification, and we feel honored that we are in safe hand and we are talking and meeting constitutionally, first thing. And second thing, that we are very thankful to our Assembly member, Robert Carroll. So thing that I faced or I attended a meeting of Brooklyn Art Council, that they have minimized and they have dismantled a lot of cultural program, which is no good, because we are living in Brooklyn, which is one of the most diverse cultural city in America. So I think if you kindly also think about the cultural things in this community or in this borough, this will be very highly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Shahid. Look, I agree that notice is important, and I'm not sure if you're meaning the notice for the county-wide county committee meeting, which of course there's been lots and lots of legal disputes, and hopefully we will be able to figure that out soon. I think it is pretty shameful what the county leader and the folks around her have done. It is anti-democratic. It is opaque, and it has clearly been done to stifle any debate. And unfortunately, too often folks in political power have no problem whatsoever once they get that power to try to stifle that debate. So I totally agree. And I agree, Shahid, that this is a big, diverse borough. We need to bring the Democratic Party together in all of its facets so that we can do a better job, all of us, because if we don't hear from folks and we don't talk to folks, we won't know what they need. So thank you, and thank you for the work that you do in your part of the district and on Coney Island Avenue. You're a great organizer. I saw in the chat, someone asked about marijuana legalization. I definitely think for whoever asked, I think it was Alexander, it's definitely part of the discussion. I really do believe that we were close last year to legalizing, and I support the legalization of adult use marijuana. And I do think that it is, I would assume that it's more likely this year than ever.
Thank you. The cultural thing, cultural dismantle Brooklyn Art Council.
Sorry, Shahid, what were you asking about?
That I attended a meeting of Brooklyn Art Council, that the Brooklyn Art Council dismantle or finished to close a lot of cultural programs in Brooklyn. This is no good. We are one of the biggest diversity cultural community in Brooklyn, and they have closed a lot of programs. I don't know what is the reason.
Shahid, I'm not sure which organization you're talking about. I see Shahid, we can also talk offline. Rosalie Friend, I see, has her hand raised.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Shahid. Rosalie, go ahead.
Thank you.
The Art Council said that they're not getting enough funding from the state, the city, and the National Endowment for the Arts, and that they're closing all their folk arts programs.
Yes, yeah, folk arts program, yes.
That's horrifying.
Yes.
Horrifying.
It is
One of the
hard.
things
So
that
I'm the.
They mentioned that
So I'm
the
the.
Brooklyn Arts Council is known while the other borough arts councils are not, because of their lively folk arts program. So it's just small
so-
compared to the MTA, but it has importance.
So I talk to small arts organizations quite often. I'm the chair of the subcommittee on cultural institutions and museums for the state. It is tremendously frustrating. The issues around arts funding. NISCA has never fully recovered from its cuts back in 2008.
Okay.
After the last financial crisis. NISCA and its counterpart in the city are essential for small arts organizations that make the New York City art scene a vibrant and diverse ecosystem, and don't make it some staid museum that the only arts going on are on Broadway or Carnegie Hall or in the halls of the Met, but allow for emergent and divergent arts organizations and professionals to really push boundaries and to interact with a whole host of communities. So I hear you, and it's a huge problem, and it's the reason why we need to kind of take a multi-layered offense to fixing these budget holes, because there is no one panacea, and I really do hope that we will raise serious revenue, that the federal government will provide real relief, and that we will borrow wisely.
Thanks. I think we have time for one more question, and Cheryl posted in the chat. Her question was, can we expect further election reforms, campaign finance, automatic registration, etc.? Did you have anything you wanted to add to that question, Cheryl? Okay, I think you could go ahead and take that question.
So we have automatic voter registration now. It's not the greatest bill in the world, because it is kind of clunky because of the way we do party enrollment. So you're enrolled if you pay taxes, et cetera, and it's a passive enrollment. You have to opt out, but then you've got to figure out a way to pick your party, and there's clunky ways to do that. It can be done better, but it was passed last year. I have a couple of bills. I have the bill to count and canvass ballots early on, as they're received, instead of counting and canvassing them a week after the election, which of course makes us the last state in the union to certify results. there are a whole host of bills that I have around small different election reforms, and we're going to have a forum next week, I think on Tuesday, December 7th, that will be around Board of Elections reform, and how do we reform the Board of Elections, and how do we make sure that our elections are administered in a more common sense way, from having more early voting polling sites to allow for same day registration, which I'm the sponsor of that constitutional amendment, which we will hopefully pass in the first week of the session next year, which we passed 2 years ago now. And so a bunch of things like that, I think, will happen. I think that, you know, some of the low hanging fruit has been done now, but I'm looking forward to continuing that effort of making it easier to vote, easier to be on the ballot. Simplicity is king when it comes to election laws. It should be really simple to vote. It should be really simple to register to vote. It should be really simple to change your party. It should be really simple to do all these things. Whenever it's hard or there are large barriers, I think you've got to ask questions why. And usually when you have to ask those questions, it's because somebody doesn't want somebody to participate. And that's a giant, giant problem.
Thanks very much. Thanks for taking those questions. And I think now we're going to move on to talk about county committee a little bit. But you're welcome to stick with us if you have time, Assemblymember Carroll. But thank you very much for those explanations. And if anyone's wondering what is going on in the chat, Francis, our secretary, is watching the executive committee of the Democratic Party, who happen to be meeting right now. That's streaming on YouTube, and right now it looks like they're discussing whether to extend the deadline for appointments, and we're going to get into that appointment deadline in a little bit. But I will let you know, those of you who were waiting to be appointed to county committee, all those appointments were submitted this morning. So hopefully at this meeting that's going on now, all these people who intended to run for county committee but didn't manage to collect all the signatures will be appointed onto county committee. And we'll follow up and confirm that that has actually taken place after this meeting. So right now, I wanted to talk a little bit about what has been happening, because there's been a lot happening with the county committee organizing meeting, which was supposed to happen back in September, but obviously has not happened yet. So I'm going to share a link. Oh, and Ariel in the chat asks if there is a recording of this meeting available. Yes, I will post a link to a recording of this meeting later this week. I'll email it to you. So if you need to leave, you'll be able to catch up later. So I'm posting in the chat right now. This is a document called the ongoing saga of the 2020 Brooklyn County Committee organizing meeting. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll just give you a few bullet points. Basically, back in January, Frank Sedios stepped down as chair of the executive committee, also known as the party boss. And Rodney Spichot was elected his successor. And at that same meeting, the executive committee eliminated the first county committee meeting of the year, the January meeting. So the only county committee meeting scheduled in 2020 was the September organizing meeting. And then I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit. On September 2nd, obviously we were in the middle of the pandemic. Myself and some other county committee members sent a proposal to the chair of the party for holding an online meeting, because obviously it seemed like that was the thing to do, not have everybody get together in a public space. And they received that proposal, but did not make any commitment to have an online meeting. And then on September 29th, they voted not to have a meeting at all. And then some county committee members raised a legal challenge to that, because the election law requires them to have an organizing meeting for the newly elected county committee. And that the Judge Walker of the state Supreme Court ruled in favor of the plaintiffs, that the county committee meeting had to happen. So there were some other legal challenges that you can read about in that document that I posted, but I won't go through all of them right now. But the upshot is the county committee meeting has to happen between now and October 12th. I'm saying October 12th, December 12th, next week. By next Saturday, the county committee meeting is required to happen by law. We still don't know when it's going to take place, how it's going to take place, how we'll be able to participate. But my friend Andrew Sloat of New Kings Democrats put together a little slideshow that explains a little bit of what's been going on. So I'm going to share that my screen right now, and hopefully you will be able to look at that. And apologize to the people that are on the phone and can't see this, but you'd be able to see it in the replay. So I am sharing that right now. Okay, so everybody should be seeing this slide. What has the Kings County Democratic County Committee been up to recently? There was an election in 2020, obviously. The results of the election look like this. So what Andrew's written is Caucus A over here in green is, most of the people in our district, I think that the people that want county committee to be an active participant in the party operations. And what he's got labeled as Caucus B over here is basically the people that are loyal to the party boss and are not particularly interested in having a county committee that's an active participant, but would rather just have all the power concentrated in the party boss. So obviously there's more people in Caucus A than Caucus B by any estimation. But the executive committee has more people that are loyal to the party boss. That's a simplified explanation of what's going on here. And then, so this picture, standard procedure. This is, if you've been to a county committee meeting before this year, this is what it usually looks like. 500, 600 people in a big auditorium. Obviously, that can't happen this year due to the pandemic. So usually, when that county committee meeting takes place, the first thing that happens is the whole county committee, all however many people attend, 500, 600 people, plus all the people that send in their proxies, votes to approve the party rules. Then they vote to elect officers of the county committee. Then they vote to appoint people to fill vacant seats. But that's not what is happening this year. Because of changes that the executive committee made to the rules recently, I'll back up to where Andrew is here. I think what Rodney's and her allies on the executive committee are worried about is that Caucus A here in green, which I think represents most of us, county committee members that want to be participants in the party, could vote to change the rules and basically vote for county committee members to have more of a role, put back the January meeting, be able to have more debate and, more voting rights. So it looks like Caucus A is going to win. So the new rules they put in for 2020 are they had an executive meeting before the organizational meeting took place, and they changed the rules so the executive committee, the district leaders, get to make appointments to fill all the vacant seats. And that's why our appointments were put in today, because instead of that happening at the county committee, that was happening in a rush this week. They just, on this past Sunday, decided that they were going to collect appointments, and the deadline was today, this morning. So people had 2 days to get together all their appointments for county committee. Fortunately, we had ours ready to go. But the theory is, and I'll move ahead, that the allies of the party boss, of Chair Bichotte, are going to appoint a whole lot of people to the county committee before that meeting. And they have about 2,000 seats to play with. So suddenly, their very small number of elected county committee members could become, 2 or 3 or 4 times as large. And all those people don't even necessarily have to show up at the county committee. They could just hand off their proxy. So now when the county committee votes in the party rules, the caucus which won fewer seats in the election will get to make the party rules. And Andrew asks, is this fair? So again, that was a little summary by Andrew Sloat of New Kings Democrats of what's been happening with county committee. And obviously this whole thing is very complicated, but it basically amounts to a power grab. I mean, why hasn't there been a county committee meeting as there was supposed to be in September, while, Queens had one, the Bronx had one, the state committee had one, all online, all safely, but Brooklyn can't do it. And I think the answer is that they've been coming up with ways to make sure that our votes don't count. And the latest way they've figured out is to appoint a whole bunch of people to previously empty seats and collect those proxies. So when they do have to have the meeting that the judge ordered sometime next week, they'll have more votes. What should we do about that? My feeling is, and we can talk about this, my feeling is we should show up whenever that meeting is. And, we should vote whenever we have the opportunity to vote. And we should speak whenever we have the opportunity to speak. And if we're overruled by, 500 or 1,000 proxies held by Rod Neeson or allies, then at least that'll go on the record as that's what happened. We showed up and we got voted down, and then we can decide what to do after that. But I know that was a lot. Does anyone have any questions about county committee and this meeting that should happen sometime next week? Gina.
Yeah, I'm wondering, do they have to publish the list of county committee appointees? The reason why I'm wondering this is if we can contact them and try to get their proxies.
And I think you're correct that that is a matter of public record. It's on the Brooklyn Democratic Party website. It's a very short amount of time. I mean, they made the deadline today, and the deadline the judge set for having the meeting is a week from Saturday.
Right.
So whether they will actually manage to publish that information between now and the meeting is an open question. It seems doubtful to me. But yes, we should try to find that information. And the people that have that information would be district leaders, because district leaders submitted the appointments. Doug and Lori submitted ours this morning. So one way to find out if you have a channel to the district leader, we could try to find that out. So if there's a particular district you want to know about, we can look into that. And Cheryl, you have a question.
I'm assuming that I was not the only one here who received a mailing last week for right, thank you. That was ostensibly supposed to be about how to make the selection of members more, that's the one, to make it more gender neutral. Whereas in fact, apparently what happened was that they used the excuse of gender neutrality to appoint at least 3 new at-large executive committee members that are answerable to nobody but the executive committee.
Not quite. It's not executive committee members, but what they did is they created 4 at-large seats in every assembly district, seats on the county committee.
Okay.
That didn't require you to identify as male or female. So there's now, 84 new seats. But here's the catch. They announced this on Sunday, and the deadline for submitting non-binary candidates for those 4 seats in every district was this morning. So people had about 48 hours to recruit 4 non-binary people in their district who wanted to serve on county committee. And our district, we did not manage to find it. I mean, we asked around, but we did not find anybody. It's not, I think if your goal is diversity on the county committee, you can't expect that to happen in 48 hours. And most people don't even know what county committee is. So I think that the real agenda was something else. I think it was this plan to, because with that same rules change, they also allowed the executive committee to make all these appointments. So in addition to these, few seats for non-binary people, they also have 2,000 or so seats they can fill with whoever they want. Yes, Cheryl.
And just one other point I wanted to make about the mailing, which is that we know, because we finally forced the information out of them, that county is in very bad straits financially. And yet they saw fit to send this multi-page mailer to how many thousands of us?
About more than 2,000.
Yeah. with first class postage on it, I might add.
Yes. Thanks, Cheryl. Glenn, I think you were the next to raise your hand.
Thank you. Do you have any idea what is behind all of this? This kind of a power grab. What are they trying to accomplish that they didn't think they could accomplish otherwise? And is the fact that there are 4 non-binary members per seems to be quite excessive, since we're starting with only 2 electeds.
Wait, it's 4 county committee seats. So in the 44th here, we have 270 county committee seats. So they just made that number 274.
Oh, okay.
So it's not something that's going to change the balance of power on the county committee, even if people manage to fill all those seats. I think most districts in the 48 hours they had did not manage to fill those 4 seats. But as far as your other question, it's a very good question, because the chair of the executive committee, the party boss, already has most of the power. It's not like county committee, if she had the organizing meeting, it's not like county committee members could go and vote her out. We don't have the power to vote her out. That's a vote of the district leaders. The only things we can do, we can vote on the party rules. And there are some modest proposals to change those rules to be more democratic. We can vote to elect officers of the county committee, which also don't have very much power. But apparently even those few things that we can, stand up and say things at the meeting that sometimes the boss doesn't like. We've all seen that happen under Frank Sedio's term. But Frank Sedio never tried to eliminate the organizing meeting. So this, to me, feels like a new level of basically telling county committee members you don't have a role in the party is the message I'm getting. Mark, you have a question?
Yeah, it's very similar to Glenn's question, I think, but curious, other than increased democracy for democracy's sake, which is obviously good. Are there specific kind of policies or positions that we want to influence on county committee beyond just having more representation, which is obviously like an important kind of first step goal?
Yeah, and that's a good question. And there's been a variety of rules changes proposed over the years. That's something that New Kings Democrats has really focused on. That's one organization that's working on this, but I know a lot of others are as well. Also, forming ADCs like we did here in the 44th is another way people are trying to do more and have more participation in the party, and that's something that the leadership has never encouraged. But as far as what those rules changes amount to, I can post in the chat the whole list when I can dig it up. But it's basically things like being able to have a look at the party's financials, and Diana can speak to that later. Regular reporting, publishing minutes of the meetings on the websites, having executive committee meetings in open session, which they're doing tonight, which is a rare thing, but they don't usually do that. So we know what's going on. And when they do have these full county committee meetings, doing them in a way where anyone can bring a motion and where, people can have a fair vote. I guess the biggest thing that I'm forgetting that would make the biggest difference would be reforming the proxy rules. Because if you've been on county committee for a few years, you've been in a meeting where you show up and there's 500 people in the room and the boss shows up with 600 votes or 700 votes. And everybody in the room raises their hand and votes for something. And the boss raises his hand and votes on the other side, and that one person wins. So I think that would be the first rules change to make. Assemblymember Carroll and District Leader Schneider have both made proposals to change that. There's been a lot of proposals to change that, but it hasn't happened yet. Are there any other questions about county committee, about this meeting? Theosine. Oh,
Yeah.
Am I pronouncing your name right? Sorry.
Che Yasin, but
Cheyasin. Sorry. My
very,
apologies.
very close. Is there any actionable items that we could do? Because so far there seems to be very little in our hands or that we could do. So just, be proactive, to feel like there's something. I mean, like at least an effort would make me somewhat feel good. Yeah, is there anything that like I could do or that we could do as an ADC to try to fight or something?
That's a great question. And, I know we haven't been offering you a lot of actions lately because we haven't known what's going on. I mean, there's been this lawsuit and we still don't know when the meeting is taking place. But I'd say the first thing you can do is, keep an eye on your email and keep an eye on your mailbox, because you will get a letter in the mail saying when the county committee meeting is going to happen. My best guess is next Wednesday or next Saturday. And try to attend that meeting in whatever form they give us. It's probably going to be on Zoom like this, and try to find a way to make your voice heard at that meeting. And we're going to be looking into that with you and trying to find the best ways. They may not let us speak, they may not give us an opportunity to vote on anything, but we can be there, we can watch what's going on. And then after that meeting takes place, if it winds up being an undemocratic process, if we're not satisfied with how it was conducted, if we feel shut out, then, we should spread the word to other people, that follow local politics, let people know what the leaders of the Brooklyn Democratic Party are doing. And then when we have our official ADC meeting, which we're going to do, I think, first week in January, I think we should try to show that it is possible to have an online committee meeting where you take votes and where you hear motions and where everybody who wants to speak gets a chance to speak. That the Democratic Party can do that, because if we set a model for how to do this on a smaller scale, then hopefully the county party would follow that. Or if they won't, then we need some new leaders, I think. And there's elections again in 2022 for all these positions.
As far as like modeling goes, I think I heard earlier that Queens was able to do it, right? So if a whole other county borough was able to do it, like what?
Yes, there's no question that it can be done. It's hard, because the county committee has more than 2,000 members. So, it takes some planning and it takes some thinking to make that work. But we've been working on that since September. Myself and some other county committee members have a plan. We sent it to county. They've ignored it, so we're not sure what they're going to do. But it's something we have to figure out because we don't know how long this pandemic is going to last. And honestly, I think that having an online committee meeting might be more democratic in the long run, because they used to have these committee meetings, in Coney Island, in places that are not easy for, county committee members up in Bushwick to get to. Whereas if it's on Zoom, these days, most of us are online, all day, every day. And so I think that setting that path for the future, setting that precedent that you can have a county committee that functions online, in person, all the time, in a democratic way is good work for us to be doing right now.
Tony, I also want to say, I have this slated for later in the meeting, but yes, there are many, many actions this group can be taking outside of this meeting and attending this meeting that are for us, that are definitely our roles. So we don't have to just be sidelined by what's happening here. We can build our power in other ways that I will get to.
Yes, thanks, Courtney. And we should move on to the next part of the agenda. Does anyone have anything else? We could probably do one more question about the county committee meeting. No? Okay. Well, thanks for bearing with me through that long explanation. And if you have more questions, you can always email me, and I will be sending email updates after this meeting as soon as we find out when this meeting is going to take place and what our options are going to be for participating in it. But right now, I wanted to turn it over to our treasurer, Diana Gonzalez, who is going to talk a little bit about her ideas for the future. So Diana, take it away.
Hello. I actually do want to respond with one other action we can take right now for those people who made the ballot and didn't need to be appointed to the county committee. You probably got that crazy 16-pager in the mail. You may not have noticed that right at the end, you're invited to a public comment. And there will be a Zoom meeting where you can make public comments on that proposal. And I think if they're giving us the chance to be heard, we should take it. So I have already signed up, and I would encourage anyone else who wishes to do so to sign up as well. And yeah, there's no reason why we shouldn't be doing that. But what I wanted to talk about right now is from the conversations I've had with folks about everything that's going on with the county committee, it seems like folks are getting a little frustrated and disillusioned. And so I wanted to take a moment to put this moment in time into some context. And I'm sorry to bore you guys, but I'm giving you a little bit of a history lesson about where the county committee originated and how we got here. Back before the 1990 New York City Charter revision, the city had what was called the Board of Estimate, which kind of had a lot of the powers that the city council now has. It had a lot of control over the budget and especially over city contracts. And all of the borough presidents sat on this Board of Estimate. And a lot of the borough presidents tended to be Democratic Party leaders in their boroughs. And all the borough presidents would rubber stamp each other's patronage schemes. And so they ran massive patronage operations in which basically city contracts and jobs with city contractors were traded for political loyalty. And this lessened a little with the charter revision in 1957, which made the borough presidents less powerful, and then was eliminated in 1990 when, as a result of the Supreme Court ruling, the Board of Estimate was eliminated altogether. But back in those days, if you were somebody who wanted to get a job with a city contractor, the person you went to was your county committee member. We were the middlemen in this massive, corrupt patronage party operation. And in exchange for that government job, that county committee member would make that person vote and volunteer for county-backed candidates. That was what county committee members did. This is where we come from. Now, after 1990, county had a lot less patronage to give out because now all county has is jobs at the Board of Elections and the occasional judicial seat, and those don't open up a whole lot. And so county basically got smaller. It said, well, we don't have as much patronage to give out, so we can't let as many people in. And they went from being very welcoming to a county committee to not being welcoming of it because we can no longer be active participants in its corruption operation. But the culture at county never changed. It's still very much a favor trading, pay to play kind of a place. And I think for those of us in county, that idea is really foreign, right? Those of us on the county committee don't see it that way. That's not what we want our roles to be. And the struggle right now isn't just over whether we get to have this meeting or not have this meeting or get to vote on this or not vote on this. It's over the culture of our organization going forward. And I want us all to understand that we're fighting a really big fight here. We're fighting a fight to change the way county's leadership sees itself and what its values are. And so this is really big, and it's been a long fight, and it's going to stay being a long fight. But what excites me the most about this moment is I think that county looks really desperate. Through all the Vito Lopez years and the Frank Cedio's years, county leadership kind of pretended it was down with having a county committee. And now for the first time, we're really seeing that Rodney Bichot does not want us to exist. She wants to do everything powerful to minimize us so much that we cease to function. But at the same time, we're creating ADCs and becoming active in them and organizing ourselves. We're winning district leader races. We have more reformer district leaders now than we've had since I can even remember. The one staffer that has managed county in one way or another for the past several decades just retired, and they just lost a massive amount of institutional knowledge, and they have to keep their expensive consulting firm happy by sending us 16-page manifestos of absolute BS. And they're losing lawsuits. They're losing in a lot of ways. And I want us to remember that. I want us to remember that in the long game, we actually are winning. And what's happening in this moment with county trying to take our power away is like the last desperate act. So their culture, their structure is unsustainable and their cracks are showing. And what we have to do right now is to keep at it, to keep showing up, to keep demonstrating an alternative vision of what county committee members can be. And I'm really thrilled that everyone's here today, in spite of the fact that it's now the busy, crazy holiday season. And I just wanted to thank all of you for that. And whenever you're feeling like you're not sure what to do, just remember that like not being a crooked county committee member is actually a really brave act and a really powerful act.
Thanks, Diana. That's really well said. Does anybody have any questions for Diana before we go on to our next item on the agenda? Okay. And I just asked, Francis is still keeping an eye on the executive committee meeting that's still going on YouTube, but you can also check that out later and see. When I checked in right before this meeting.
Sorry, Tony, you were calling my name?
Oh yes, no, I was just wondering if there are any updates from the executive committee meeting that you're watching.
So essentially what they're doing is they're bickering right now over whether they should allow a deadline for Saturday to allow any district leaders who have yet to submit their slate of appointees to county committee. And there is discussion over whether they want to just allow those district leaders who have, failed to submit anything, so they have 0 appointees, or to open it up for anyone and just make the full extension of Friday or Saturday. Great. So this is an obscenely long meeting with people just basically shouting at everyone. And like Doug Schneider at the very beginning of the meeting just said it would be more efficient if everyone who needs the extension could just vote on it as one, one large motion. That was denied, and they want to go through it piece by piece. So now this is a side conversation to figure out, the circumstances of which they would approve extending it for everyone who had yet to submit. Thanks.
So it sounds like we didn't miss anything too significant. Fortunately, our appointments are all submitted because, thanks to Dan Campanelli and our district leaders, everybody, coordinated, and we had that list together back in October. So all the people who were up for nomination for a county committee seat have been submitted and will get a seat as far as we know, unless something else crazy happens. So I wanted to hand it over now to our vice chair, Courtney Adrian, is going to talk a little bit about some short-term projects and what we can be doing now as all this chaos is going on. So Courtney, take it away.
Thanks. And thanks, Diana. To riff off of that, I think people basically have 2 reactions to seeing corruption anywhere. And one is to just like totally despair and fall apart and want to give up on all of it. And I don't suspect there are that many people like that here, but probably your constituents are potentially those people. And then the other reaction, which is definitely the one I have time and time again as a county committee member, is to like dig in and go really hard and let it keep me up at night and stuff like that. So if that is your reaction and you are frustrated by how the hard power involved in this position is being taken away from you, I want you to know, and this is the truth, that the soft power involved in being a county committee member, I think, is equally, if not more valuable than the hard power of voting in these meetings a few times a year, or I guess once a year now. And the soft power is talking to your neighbors and getting them to care about their party and about their elected officials. So, and I guess getting to know them in your own personal way and being the person on their block who they can talk to about these local races that are sometimes not even things they could Google if they wanted to. And knowing that there's someone that they can go to talk to about this, I think is a power as great as voting in this thing that they might think is actually really obscure and don't totally understand the ramifications of. So we had hoped when we formed the committee that this would be a bigger part of it. I think the committee is great. We're doing a lot of like informing each other about what's going on because it can be extremely confusing, and talking to each other, which is great. But I had hoped that the committee, and I still hope, and I know that we can, create like a more formal channel for how we can all be really good elected officials to our constituents. So to that end, I had some specific and discrete tasks in mind that I'm hoping for volunteers to lead or help me with. This would be, ostensibly committee, somebody who is on a committee or a committee chair wants to take these on, then great. But if someone just wants to one-off volunteer because they feel like maybe they don't have the time or the energy to invest in a long-standing committee commitment, these would be for you. And you would have a lot of time to complete them. They're mostly things that we should be telling our constituents in the lead up to city council primaries, which are in June of next year. So is that 8 months away? And one of the things I thought we could do, so I don't know if anyone is prepared to, I guess, agree to these things now, or if you'd like to just send me a private, or Tony a private message later, I'll put my email in the chat. But the first one is to educate voters about ranked choice voting, which I had in mind that this would mostly be in the form of a flyer that we could create, that we could distribute by door knocking on our constituents' doors. We have the list of registered Democrats in our area. We could hand it out to them. We could hand it out to everyone, or we could target if you didn't want to print out that many. And it would just be talking about how, hey, this is the first time we're going to be doing this. It's in city elections only. And here, you don't have to rank every candidate. But there's kind of a lot of, it's sort of confusing, and there's kind of a lot of explaining to do. And then hopefully at the end of this flyer, if you felt comfortable, you could put your contact information in order to have a longer conversation with this person if they were interested. So you can think about whether you'd like to do that. While I tell you about the next thing, which is to get, and also advance of this primary, to get blank voters, people who are registered to vote but are not registered as Democrats, to become Democrats so they can vote in what will be this extremely consequential primary. So I guess the task there would be to also create a flyer, or really anything that you'd like to do that introduces yourself, informs people that they are a quote blank voter, and tells them about the benefits of joining the Democratic Party in New York City. We would, in addition to doing that, we would need to work on getting a list of those blank voters. So we'd have to reach out to the Board of Elections for that. So that is task number 2, ranked choice voting and blank voters.
I'm just going to jump in for 1 second, Courtney. I'm just asking people if you want to sign up to help out with this ranked choice voting information project, type RCV in the chat. If you want to sign up to help with the blank voter project, type blank in the chat.
Press
Thank
1
you.
on your keypad if you would like to. I'm kidding. And then this is Tony's idea. What we really need help with is if anyone out there is a Robert's Rules of Order or parliamentary procedure scholar or wants to become one, we could really use that. Tony has tried to learn as much as he can. I think I've seen like other people around here with like the Idiot's Guide to Robert's Rules of Order in order to try to learn these things. I know
It's a good book.
The Wikipedia page has been helpful to me, but maybe we could use some more help, I would say, because we want to follow these procedures as best we can ourselves. And it helps when we eventually do have meetings with, you know, the obstinate larger county to be able to hold them to these rules, which in the past they seem to respond well to whenever we tell them that they aren't following them. In the meeting, in setting of a larger meeting for someone who hasn't been there, it kind of works. I don't know why. Creating order in those meetings. Anyway, well, whatever. I don't know. I'm sure some of you guys are watching the YouTube one right now and you get the gist. So ranked choice voting, blank voters, and Robert's Rules of Order. And then, of course, any ideas you might have for any other short-term project, you know, as it relates to being a better county committee member to your neighbors, maybe even explaining all of this ridiculous stuff to them if you think that's a thing that they would be interested in. Or it could even just be something you want to do on your block because you know that people on your block would be interested in this, but maybe all 44thers wouldn't be. So those are the things I think that we should do. I think we should do really a lot more of that. I think it should be like half of what this committee does. So I hope we can do more of it in the coming year. That's it. That's all I've got. I'll talk to you all soon about making those flyers. I'm glad people want to volunteer. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Courtney. I think Gina has a question, but first there was a question in the chat that I think we can answer. Renee asked about the deadline for changing your party registration, and that did change this year. This year it was February 14th. I remember because it was Valentine's Day that you had to change your party registration before the June primary. So I believe that would be around the same time, sometime in mid-February. So we do have time to get blank voters. We have a little bit of time to get blank voters to register as Democrats. Does anyone else have any information about that? I'll double check that, but I think it's February is the deadline to change your party affiliation. So all the thousands of people who are not registered with any party, we can find them. They're in the voter file, and we can, suggest that they change their registration to Democrat. Gina, you had a question?
I do. It's about how people are contacting other county committee members, or new ones are contacting their constituents. I have, we don't have email, we have just address. So is it all door to door? How are you really making that connection to create that community around your area?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
I'm envisioning this as paper, dropping paper at people's doors. In the past, I have attempted to ask people for their email address. And sometimes actually kind of works at the end of a conversation or even a short one. It's sort of like, okay, great, you're doing this thing. But when you ask someone, I know people are so reluctant to give it sometimes, but sometimes when you end a conversation with, and can I have your email address? It's actually more like, we are going to continue this conversation, and that makes me feel good about having it in the first place. So it doesn't always go terribly. And then the other thing is people are starting to door knock more. Unfortunately, we can't do the kind of, this would be, you would want this to be pretty targeted, especially for the blank voters. And you would want it to be targeted because you want people on your block to know that it is you in order to build this relationship. I know for the presidential primary, I did some door knocking. It's harder here. I don't really know that I'd recommend it, but you could.
I do have one other clarifying question or opinion question on that is, I think every community has some Facebook page, which is for the wider community. And I'm just not sure how it would be if I could, put information up on that group and say, how the area was defined, and, if people were interested in either getting on a Facebook group or something like that. Would that be kind of appropriate to just put it out there to so many people?
Yeah, 100%. I think I know some of those groups have different rules about politics or what have you.
Yeah, that's what I was concerned about.
But I think that'd be great too. And you could, of the best things about being a county committee member is you can be like, ahem, as your local elected, this is a public service announcement. I think it's
right, okay. For our community. All right, that's good. Thank you. That's a good idea.
Yeah, thanks, Gina. And I'm just going to point something out in the chat in case anyone missed it. Dan Campanelli posted that the Assembly member Carol has sponsored a bill to lower the enrollment change deadline to 10 days. So hopefully that passes, and then people would be able to change their party affiliation 10 days before the election. But right now, we think it's about, 3 months, February, March, April, 4 months. And I also wanted to say that, considering the current public health situation, candidates for city council are already talking about, does it make sense to petition in this? Is it safe to petition? So I think that's a conversation we should, keep having, and we should, think about how to, how can we engage with our constituents safely? What are the protocols when we need to get petition signatures? What are the protocols for handing out leaflets? How can we make that happen safely? And how many things can we take online to these local groups, whether it's Facebook or Nextdoor? I think we really should be exploring that because, it's an unusual situation. We don't want to put anyone at risk, but people need to know about ranked choice voting. This election is going to happen in June. And, if people walk into the voting booth and have no idea what to do, that's going to be a disaster. So thank you so much, Courtney, for all those. Any other questions on any of those items? Oh, Chayasin was asking, where can I get the list of blank and Dem voters in my ED? Yes, and Alex Lowe has done a project like this and has those lists as well. So I can reach out to him. We can certainly work on that. So we will.
I know that we can. I kind of want to build the capacity within ourselves to be able to do this. But we can figure out how to get this from the Board of Elections as part of our project, and then hopefully know how to do it again for ourselves for next time.
That sounds great.
We have a friend who does know how, so we're not totally lost.
Yes, indeed. Great. So I will note down everybody who signed up for one of those things in the chat, and Courtney will follow up with an email, and we'll get you plugged into those things. So thanks so much for that. Now, Francis, are you still watching the executive committee meeting?
Yes, I am.
And no breaking news to report?
There's discussion about what's happening with the at-large seats. The motion on Sunday to approve the amendment to allow for non-binary or non-cis members to be represented on county committee. Doug Schneider is right now talking about how he's seeing some examples of nominees for the at-large seats coming from the same households as existing county committee members or elected leaders, and how it's sort of pink washing. What essentially happens is that Ranisi's big proclamation that they're trying to improve inclusivity is just pink washing for an obvious power grab. And I think that a lot of the non-binary or the otherwise non-cis hetero members of county committee are openly talking about how they have a lot of concerns that what the executive committee is doing for the Brooklyn Democratic Party is they're trying to just only talk about the appeal of it, and they're violating the spirit of what this motion, the approved motion, was supposed to do on Sunday, because they think it's a very egregious power grab. So, but no actual actionable events have happened yet.
Thanks, Francis. Well, if you can pull yourself away from that riveting meeting for a moment, could I ask you to talk about a little bit about what you're doing as secretary with the website and those plans?
Sure. 1 second. Let me just increase the volume here so that way I can actually hear you. Yeah. So right now, the sort of project I initiated without talking to the rest of the executive committee, sorry guys, is building a website for our ADC. It's not a WordPress. It's not one of those, go to Squarespace or something services. It's a full-on web app platform. The idea is to basically have a central place where, we can provide information on who we are as an ADC, why we formed, get a sense of our mission and who we're about. And then at a certain point, try to scale it and provide it more as like an actual resource for the rest of the ADC membership. For those who have software or web background, it's built in Python and in Flask. The Flask framework is something called a micro framework, which really simply means you have to build for what you want. What that means is we can build a very lean, very small web app. And the more we grow and the more complex we get as an organization, the more we can scale and increase our complexity. So it's right now not ready. It's in an alpha stage. But my hope is to use some existing technology that I already built to, basically provide a real resource for everyone. So for example, I built a little tool that allows me to convert Word documents into actual HTML, which is the language of the web. It's a way of creating web pages on the fly. And so whenever we write meeting notes or, there's a document we want to disseminate, we can just, send it over to this little piece of software, sends us back a web page, we post it up, and it can be live. So that's what I have for now. I'm sure at some point in consultation with the rest of the executive committee, I'll try to start soliciting feedback from the membership at large, so that way we can get a sense of how we can best serve you. And that's basically it.
That sounds great. Thank you, Francis. So I guess we have that to look forward to after our next official meeting. Maybe there'll be a website where we can look and find the minutes of that meeting and other information about what's going on in the ADC. No pressure though, Francis.
Well, I'll tell you really quickly, the web service that I built for that very purpose is live. So, once the site's like ready for some kind of presentation, I'll just be like, Tony, give me your documents. And I'm going to blow your mind about how fast I can whip these things out. That came out wrong. It'll blow your mind about how efficient I will be.
That sounds great. So speaking of that, that's the other bit of news tonight. Now that it looks like the county committee meeting is going to happen next week, fingers crossed, because that's what the judge ordered them to do, we should have our organizing meeting. The official start of the new 2020 ADC is supposed to happen within 30 days of the county committee meeting. So I think that we're going to try to do that the first week in January, because that's about 30 days, and that way we, can avoid the holidays, and hopefully people are back in some sort of a routine. Maybe the first Wednesday in January. If anyone has a reason why that's not a good idea, let me know. But I'm going to talk to the district leaders and see if that works for them, and we'll see if we can do something in the middle of the first week in January for our organizing meeting. And at that meeting, all the newly elected county committee members and the newly appointed county committee members will participate. We're going to vote on rules changes, which James Billsborough and the Rules Committee very carefully put together. And we're going to vote to elect officers. So if you'd like to run for chair of the ADC or vice chair or treasurer or secretary, you can certainly do that. And all the candidates can send in statements, and we'll have a vote on that. And then we'll also convene committees of the ADC, our standing committees and any special committees you might want to form. So I'll send all that information by email, and you can follow along. But I'm looking forward to doing that in January and getting our new year off to a good start, where we can really start to dig in on all these projects. Does anyone have any questions about our organizing meeting? Okay, so we are getting towards the end, and we're not going to keep you too much longer tonight. As far as this executive committee meeting that's still going on YouTube, I'll post the link to that in the chat in case you want to catch the end of that after, or the replay. As far as I know, once that meeting finishes, it'll stay up on YouTube. So if you want to see what Doug Schneider has been saying in it, or Lori, you can check back on that later. I'll post that in the chat shortly. So we have a little bit of time now. If anyone, we can just have some open discussion. If anyone has an idea of something they'd like the ADC to do, if anyone has thoughts about this whole county committee situation, or just what the Brooklyn Democratic Party should be doing, or other things that you're concerned about, this is the time. Yes, Stephanie.
Well, just going back to the county committee, it seems that, the only things that matters to, like Rodney's Bichot or anyone who's in power is, do they have the votes? Do they have the majority? That's all they really care about. I don't think that modeling good behavior is, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to, cause them to change their ways in the future. I mean, it's worth a shot. But I think in the long run, we just have to somehow elect more, district leaders in other, in other districts, because I think unless the majority of district leaders are committed to reform, it's never going to really happen. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't have any specific ideas, but I kind of hope that maybe in the next round of elections for 2022, that maybe we could be involved in trying to reach out to people in other districts that don't have reform-minded district leaders, and see if we can get someone to run, reformers to run in those districts too, beyond Park Slope and whatever. So, so that's kind of a long-term idea. That's all.
I love that idea, Stephanie. That's really, I mean, the district leaders are certainly where the power center is in the party, and they're the ones that elect the party boss every 2 years, and they're all up for election every 2 years. So in 2022, all 42 district leaders are up for election, and any registered Democrat in that district can challenge them. So that's a really great point. Anybody else?
I just wanted to respond to that by saying that, like, Stephanie, I've heard many people say this, and I've personally been really inspired by the new reformers in Queens who essentially did this. I don't know if anyone has heard of them, but last cycle they worked to create a slate of reform district leaders and get them elected, and were fairly successful, and it's really exciting to me. I don't know how to do it. I wish I did, but you'd have a lot of allies if you tried to join do something like that, I think.
Anybody else have anything that they want to suggest for the our ADC to work on? Rosalie. Rosalie, I think you're muted. Can you unmute yourself?
This is very astonishing to me. I have been a community activist and not involved in electoral politics, but I was strongly backing Jim Brennan, and he asked if they could put my name down for the county committee. So I said, sure, because I want to do anything that would help Jim Brennan. And my being on the county committee was completely pro forma. They put my name on a ballot and people checked it. I wasn't doing anything there. I did get to some of the county committee meetings, which was not easy to do. And it was just, they had something in mind. They had all the proxies. It was go through the motions. There was no notion of democracy at all. So the idea that this organization is happening, the idea that people might consider who's going to run for the district leader rather than the district leader just being somebody picked and put on the ballot. This is rather exciting, but it's completely, as near as I can tell. And I've been, as I say, not involved in electoral politics, but an activist in the neighborhood since probably 78. This is very astonishing. I take it to be a good thing, even though it means that I may have to put more work into it.
Thanks, Rosalie. And I've definitely heard that from other county committee members. I think that in the past, the this is, Diana was going to this a little bit when she was talking about the history of the party. In the past, this was sort of a ceremonial position, or actually like a channel for patronage to flow through. So that's certainly something that I'd like to see change. And I feel like turning this county committee office that exists in the state law into something meaningful is important work, because if we look across the country, we look at what's happening in Georgia, we look at the organizing that's happening in Arizona, and now Democrats are winning there. But I feel like we don't have as strong a Democratic organization right here in Brooklyn. We know with so many millions of Democrats, we don't have a board of elections that functions very well. We have problems with every election. We, have a governor who sometimes seems like he's more allied with the Republicans than with Democrats, at least here in the city. So I feel like if our party were better organized, and if all of us were working together and communicating with each other, it would really be a different situation here in Brooklyn. And it wouldn't be just, can I get my cousin a job over here? But it would be like actually a model for the rest of the country, how, political action, can work together. So thank you, Rosalie. Sharon, did you have your hand up?
Yeah. It strikes me that what we could be using the county district leaders and the county committee for is building the backbench that the Republicans have built up for the last 50 years. This is where we should be finding the candidates of the future for for more and higher office, and developing those paths for the people who would be really representing us and being much more hopefully progressive and diverse and all that. So I mean, I've long thought that the Democratic Party has not done a good job of that, and this is what we should be doing. This is what we should be building.
Thanks for that, Sharon. Shahid, do you have something? Wait, we can't hear you, Shahid. Make sure you're unmuted.
No.
Now we hear you.
Actually, because I just want to focus on political activism or neighborhood activism is most important. And since now we have a very busy 4 years in our future, so we need to focus on neighborhood activism or grassroots level activism, because I know a lot of people who are committee members within our community, but I never see that they have discussed about Democrat Party or any political issues in the neighborhood. So that's why we need to regulate or active our grassroots level activism and neighborhood activism.
That's so what I'm hearing, Shahid, is that we're not, the Democratic Party isn't reaching all the communities in our district. Is that what you're feeling? Like we could be doing a lot more outreach?
Yeah, because I met a lot of people who are committee members, I think last 4 years or last 6 years in our community, but I never saw him that they ever discuss about political issues, political integration, political problems or Democrat parties. So that's why I'm thinking that we need to activate or we need to strengthen our community activism at grassroots level and neighborhood level.
Yeah, no, I agree. That sounds really important. And I know there's definitely certain parts. I mean, one thing I found, being on county committee here in Part Slope, there's certain parts of the district that are much more plugged in politically. And then there's certain parts of the district that are really not, that I think elected officials, don't pay as much attention to. And that's something we could all work on, making sure that every election district, every block has some sort of contact from the Democratic Party, and people are encouraged to register, people are encouraged to vote. If people have needs that, they can communicate those to their elected officials. So I agree, that's something we can all work on. And I should shout out, I don't think Lori Davidson or Marion were able to attend tonight, but they're doing amazing work on the Diversity and Inclusion Committee in this ADC. And that's one of the ones we want to, in the rules changes we proposed, we want to make that a permanent standing committee of this ADC. So there's always a group of people that are working on, bringing more diversity into the Democratic Party in our district and making sure we're covering all the communities in the district. So if that's something you're interested in, Shahid, I would love to connect you with them.
Okay. Yes, sure.
And if anybody else is interested in doing that work, definitely let me know, because I think that's really important work.
Okay.
And I'm noticing in the chat that Francis is reporting some interesting things happening in the EXCO meeting, that the districts, some districts have been granted extensions to Saturday to submit the names, but also this is something that I was talking about with Doug when we were putting together the list of appointments to send in, is that we didn't submit any names for the 4 newly created at-large seats, because those were created for the purpose of including people that don't identify as either male or female. And I guess some districts went ahead and put cisgendered people into those seats, which really violates the spirit in which they were created. So I think now the executive committee is talking about reversing that or walking that back. So I think that's something that we can continue to think about, if these seats continue to exist, which it seems like they will, which I think is a good thing. Obviously, we weren't able to fill them in the 48 hours they gave us, but if we encounter people that identify as non-binary who would like to be involved in this work, we can certainly try to find a way to appoint them into those 4 seats. So if anybody comes across someone who's interested in this work, who identifies that way, definitely let us know. We'd love to try to make use of this new avenue that has opened up on county committee.
So please add my name.
For the Diversity and Inclusion Committee?
Yes.
Yes, I will. I'll let Lori and Marion know about that. Does anyone else have any other thoughts on what our ADC should be doing? Oh, Shahid, do you have something else?
Yeah, one more thing, that if this meeting, we also convey our best wishes to our county boss, happy birthday. So it is also a good gesture.
Yes, that would be the gracious thing to do. I know some of us don't have the warmest feelings towards the boss at the moment, but we should be able to rise above that and wish her a happy birthday. So I agree. Yeah. We should do that. Everyone deserves a happy birthday. Oh yes, and to answer the question in the chat, yes, if there are non-binary people in our district, in the 44th, who are registered Democrats who would be interested in serving in county committee, we would love to appoint them to one of those 4 seats. And we would, obviously the deadline was this morning, but hopefully there will be another avenue to appoint them onto those seats. So definitely pass their information on to myself or any of the ADC officers, and we'll try to get them appointed. Okay, so if no one else has anything to add, the one other thing on the agenda, I wanted to just ask if people have work that they're doing in the community or organizations they're working with that are doing important work in politics or in the community service that they wanted to report on. And I know we have a few folks here from CBID, so if one of you want to jump in, because I know you're doing some actions right about now, and give us an update on those. Anyone? Can I put anyone on the spot? Ben or Sharon or? Sharon, do you?
Actually, I was going to plug a different organization.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Go BK by Day.
Of course.
We're doing tons of postcarding, which is, I was talking with somebody there the night I mentioned, was that, postcards are the least invasive, or at least unwelcome, I think, point of contact with Georgia voters right now. I'm sure they're getting totally inundated with the phones and text banking and stuff. But we still have some postcards that we're sending out right now that, you can't see that, to get out the vote. This is from the Georgia Democratic Party and another organization, I'm not sure which. These have to go out by Friday, the 4th. So if anybody wants some of these, I can hook you up. Just email me. I can put my email address in the chat. And we also have another postcarding to Georgia that we're finishing up that has to be sent out by December 7th. So contact me. And we have our Zoom meeting tomorrow morning. If you are interested in joining that, I can also send you the Zoom invitation. That's at 9 a.m. And we have a city council member candidate speaking as well. Ben Solitaire is going to be talking with us tomorrow. And Joanne Simon will be coming to speak with us next Thursday morning. So that's it.
Thanks so much, Sharon. So if anyone's interested in that postcarding or going to that GoBK meeting, Sharon's going to put her email in the chat and you can reach out to her directly. Rosalie, you have something to share?
Not something local, but if any of you people can help, the president-elect is selecting cabinet positions, and I've been very involved in public education and education advocacy. And there's a lady in the Bronx named Betty Rosa, who I would like to see as Secretary of Education, and some of the national organizations I'm working with think well of her. And if anyone has suggestions how to reach the president and his people, the president-elect and his people, I'd welcome help on how to get through to them. And if anybody's interested in her candidacy, essentially, she started as a paraprofessional and bilingual in a public school and worked her way up to being the Commissioner of Education for New York State, hitting every level in between. And I want to see her in that position because she takes policy issues that I agree with. But I also noticed that she must know how to get things done if she's been in every position from the bottom to the top of the public ed, but also that the people she worked with in the Bronx, whenever I'm at a meeting, they regard her with great warmth. So that impresses me too, but I have no idea how to get through with this campaign. Any of you people who've been doing more politics know anything?
So Rosalie, if you want to, could you put your email in the chat? And then if anybody has any suggestions for Rosalie on how to approach making a suggestion to the Biden administration in their transition, then you can reach out directly to Rosalie. And thanks for that suggestion, Rosalie. And I think Diana raised her hand.
Well, since the primaries are in June, it's actually the time when everything is gearing up for all the 2021 elections, and a lot of political clubs are doing all of their endorsement stuff right now. So I can say right now that CBID's next meeting is December 17th. It's going to be on Zoom, and we're going to be having all the candidates running for the 39th, which is Brad Lander's seat, which I think almost all of us are in, as well as Brooklyn Borough President at that meeting. So definitely check that out. And of course, other clubs are doing stuff as well. So maybe check those out, clubs like NKD and stuff like that. But it's all happening right now.
Thanks, Diana. And Debbie, I see you've got your hand raised. Did you want to say something about the work you're doing on street safety or something else?
Excuse me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to say a couple things. One is I know Doug is hosting a COVID-related Zoom meeting tomorrow. I don't know if everyone has that information with Dr. Derek Cass. So I think that's an important one to talk about Brooklyn and COVID status at this moment. And I can share that with the group. Like, I don't know if I can do that right now in the chat, but I can email it to Tony and you can share it if I mean, you probably already know about it, Tony, but I don't know if everybody was aware of it. Number two is we have a rezoning issue going on directly in this area where they're trying to add more luxury housing at 57 Caton Avenue. And I know that some of you may have heard there's going to be a protest on Saturday morning, Saturday at noon, I believe is the protest. And I can send also more information about this. I'm sorry, I just don't have it at my fingertips to add it to the chat. So there was a CB7 meeting about it. There was a borough president's meeting about it. And there's a city planning commission hearing and city council land use committee meeting. So there are a lot of people who have concerns about this because it's right next to Prospect Park, directly across from the parade grounds. This is where, and the park circle. So we're concerned because of the addition of so many people, so many more cars and traffic and risks to the people that live in the neighborhood, plus the inherent issues of adding more pricing, high priced housing that's out of reach for many people who live here. So that was the second thing. The third thing is to support the open streets, which we have very few left in this part of Brooklyn because basically the open streets have been the most successful when people directly on the block have gotten very involved in putting up and taking down the barriers. So we did try to get Chester Avenue, one block of Chester Avenue, back up as an open street. It's been sort of mildly successful, and they've been trying to keep it up for like 2 hours a day. Chester Avenue, right off of Fort Hamilton Parkway, one of those blocks between Fort Hamilton and Church Avenue. The other area that's still going well, I believe, is Fifth Avenue on the weekends and Vanderbilt Avenue on the weekends. So if you can support those, that would be great.
Thanks, Debbie, and thanks for the work that you're doing on street safety and all the other things that you're keeping on top of. I didn't know about that event, but I just found the link and I'm putting it in the chat right now. So I just put that link there. That should go to Doug's Navigating the Holiday Season During COVID-19, which is happening tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. So does anybody else have anything else that they're doing in our district to report on, or any other things they wanted to pitch before we close?
I did. I really briefly. I just,
sure.
In the spirit of Diana talking about kind of like upcoming stuff in 2021 and this being a time where everything's starting up, Diane Morales is a Democratic candidate for mayor running next year, and I wanted to put her on people's radar. I could put the link to her site in the chat, but I mean, it's not a formal endorsement or anything, but I think that her positions are something that a lot of people here might be really interested in. Thanks.
And certainly county committee members are certainly allowed to endorse candidates if they see fit. We've had this discussion before about the ADC endorsing, and you all know my opinion is that the ADC as a committee of the Democratic Party should never endorse one candidate over another Democrat, because it would be like putting our thumb on the scale. But if we individually want to go out and knock on doors for a candidate or hand out flyers, there's certainly nothing wrong with that. Is my thought on that. So thanks for sharing that, Maria. And there's a lot of candidates for Maria this year. Sorry, Courtney. What did you say?
Sorry, I just said Diana Morales could put that she was endorsed by you on her flyers if she wants to.
Yes, she can do that. Well, I don't want to keep you all too long, so I will follow up with an email with more details about the county committee meeting, which we hope is going to happen actually next week. My best guess is Wednesday or Saturday, but who knows? Keep an eye on your mailbox. We'll get a mailer. And then our organizing meeting, which I think is going to take place the first week in January, I'll find out from the district leaders when they're available, and we'll let you know about that as well. I did want to say that, Doug Schneider and Lori Nipel really wanted to be here tonight, but then they announced the executive committee meeting at the same time just a few days ago. So they send their regards, and hopefully we'll speak with them soon. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight, and everybody, stay safe. I will share in the chat. I saw who signed up for the ranked choice voting and for the blank voters group, and maybe one person signed up for Robert's Rules. So we'll follow up with you about those. And you can always email me if there's something, you have an idea of something the ADC should do. Just reply to any of the emails that I send, and we'll get you plugged in. Thanks very much to Courtney and to Diana and to Francis for all the work you've done supporting this ADC. Really appreciate it. Thanks to Assemblymember Carroll, who joined us earlier. Thanks to Dan Campanelli, who did an enormous amount of work putting together this list of appointments and helping everybody petition for county committee. And thanks to all of you for everything you do. And everybody, take care. Have a good night.
Thank you, Tony.
Good night.